Undeniably, both love and money hold significant importance in our lives. However, the idea of utilizing love for the pursuit of financial gain raises the question of whether genuine love is present in such a scenario. While it is commonly acknowledged that love manifests in various forms, there seems to be a distinction between noble and base expressions of love. My name is Kate, and at the age of 21, I experienced the sudden loss of my father due to illness. Having lost my mother a decade earlier and being an only child, I found myself in a state of isolation, devoid of relatives, close friends, and certainly lacking a romantic companion. This sense of abandonment left me feeling alone in the world, immersed in darkness, and struggling to articulate my emotions. My perpetual gloominess caught the attention of my boss at the time, who, concerned for my well-being, invited me to a New Year's celebration hosted by the local Chamber of Commerce. This New Year's gathering wasn't a formal affair, but rather an authentic opportunity for chamber members to foster friendships over delightful food and drinks. The cuisine, renowned for its deliciousness, and engaging activities like bingo made it a delightful event. Despite being held slightly late in January, the food lived up to its reputation. In the past, when my father was alive, we used to prepare pizza sandwiches and champagne for New Year's celebrations. However, being alone this year, I lacked the heart to prepare anything. As I immersed myself in the joy of delicious food, a thought crossed my mind. Perhaps this is my New Year's celebration. I couldn't help but smile annoyingly, reveling in the pleasure of the moment. A man interrupted my contemplation, remarking on the beauty of my smile. Surprised, I turned to see him standing there with a genuine smile of his own. Good food, he observed, naturally brings smiles. Embarrassed, I thought he perceived me as a glutton. However, as he apologized for speaking out of turn, I sensed an unexpected ease in our conversation. It turns out that my boss, who had taken me to the celebration, had intended to introduce us from the start. This man, a respected figure in the planning department of a business partner, was skilled and well regarded. My boss believed he would be a suitable match for me. A close friend of my late father, the boss had been concerned about my well-being and sought to lift my spirits. True to his intentions, our casual conversation evolved into a natural relationship. Later, I discovered that frankly was his catchphrase, and our connection deepened. We got married 2 years later, and witnessing the joy of the couple, I couldn't help but feel overjoyed myself. I envisioned the creation of a new family, the boss expressed in his speech during our wedding. Having experienced the loss of my own family, I was now on the verge of building a new one and seeking happiness. The world transformed before me, shifting from one of loneliness to a warm embrace. Shortly after our marriage, my husband made the decision to leave his job and embark on the journey of establishing his own company. A skilled planner, he utilized his extensive land holdings to develop businesses, attracting collaborators with his planning expertise and beloved personality. The venture proved to be successful as he built rest areas, attracted companies, and developed residential areas, contributing to the town's population growth. Life, akin to a roller coaster, presented its challenges, but my husband's action-oriented nature allowed him to overcome them. I joined his company, leveraging my qualifications as a certified public tax accountant to fortify the company's financial and tax foundation. Amid our busy lives, we were blessed with a new family member, and tears of joy flowed when I gave birth to our first son, Jim. The happiness derived from welcoming a new family member was indescribable. Jim thrived, growing into a kind and caring older brother. Though being a first-time mother presented its challenges, every moment became precious when looking back. 6 years later, our family expanded with the arrival of another member, John, adding a new chapter to our family narrative. As a family of 4, our days became hectic but were infused with warm light, forming our new normal. I couldn't be happier with the way our family had evolved. Jim, now 10, continued to be a compassionate brother, while John, his younger sibling, was a tender-hearted child who adored him. At this juncture, our family was on the brink of welcoming another member, though it wasn't due to my being pregnant again. We had made the decision to care for my husband's nephew, the son of his brother, following the passing of my brother-in-law's wife. She had been in and out of the hospital due to health issues and sadly left us alone. Struggling with parenting responsibilities, my brother-in-law faced an overseas work transfer. Feeling overwhelmed by the prospect of raising a child alone in a foreign land, gratefully, he accepted my husband's offer to take care of his son. After much deliberation, considering the 5-year duration and concerns about childcare and schooling, my brother-in-law entrusted us with the responsibility. Thus, we welcomed a new family member named Mark. Initially reserved and adjusting to a new home, Mark gradually opened up and became comfortable with us, thanks to the welcoming nature of our sons, Jim and John. Jim, thrilled to have another brother, embraced Mark from the start. Meanwhile, John, the same age as Mark, gently guided and supported him, referring to their bond as akin to having a twin brother. The three of them grew up like real brothers, and my husband and I raised them without any distinction or discrimination, treating them all as our children. Originally intended for a 5-year duration, my brother-in-law's overseas assignment extended to a 10-year posting due to essential work and a lack of replacement. Upon his return, Mark, now a middle schooler, left our home to be with his father. Despite the physical distance, the deep bond among the three brothers remained intact. Jim graduated from college and joined my husband's company as a bright young man, showcasing his father's creative thinking and my keen intelligence. As parents, we began to consider the idea of Jim entering into marriage. However, before such thoughts could materialize, a grave situation emerged. A health checkup that year revealed a malignant tumor in my husband. Despite recent weight loss and fatigue, we never anticipated such a diagnosis. He was immediately admitted for treatment, but the aggressive disease showed no response to therapy. Instead, his condition rapidly worsened, rendering him frail, bedridden, and spending most of his days asleep due to the side effects of the medication. I spent most of my days in the hospital room, feeling a sense of helplessness and overwhelming worry and anxiety. Our sons and Mark visited frequently, offering solace during those trying times. Despite our fervent prayers for recovery, my husband passed away one spring afternoon. Losing a family member shook me to the core, reminiscent of the grief I felt when my father passed away. I was stunned, grappling with the fear of being alone once again. However, Jim, John, and Mark were there to pull me out of the depths of despair. Realizing that I had my sons by my side, I felt immeasurable gratitude, even though expressing it in words proved challenging. 3 years after my husband's passing, we held a memorial event to honor his memory. It's remarkable how swiftly time passes. With my husband gone, Jim assumed leadership of the company. His capabilities were widely recognized, dispelling any doubts about his young age. As the chairperson, I supported the new president, my own son Jim. Under Jim's leadership, the company flourished, marked by significant expansions, including the development of a large shopping center, related facilities, and the establishment of an independent construction department. The most rewarding aspect of the memorial event was being able to share Jim's accomplishments with my late husband, a poignant moment of closure. During the event, there was another significant update. John secured a job at a major trading company and was assigned to the Indonesian branch, a remarkable milestone in his career. He embraced this opportunity with enthusiasm, albeit it meant leaving for Indonesia alone after the event. As we gathered as a family of 4 for the first time in a while, Mark joined us, and we shared lively conversations. With the passage of years, the topic of Jim finding someone and getting married surfaced. John teased him about heading to Indonesia, jokingly suggesting that it would give Mom some peace of mind. Jim smiled awkwardly, considering the jest amidst the bittersweet reminiscence of our journey together as a family. I found myself pondering whether Jim had someone special in his life, as the topic of his marriage had been a sidelong consideration since my husband fell ill. Over the years, with Jim aging, I felt it was time to earnestly contemplate the matter. However, he seemed reluctant to be introduced to anyone, and there were no discussions about women in his life. Suddenly, Jim made an unexpected revelation, declaring his desire to get married. What shocked me even more was learning that the woman he intended to marry was pregnant with his child. While the notion of a shotgun wedding no longer carried a negative connotation, I couldn't help feeling uneasy about the circumstances, especially considering they had met in a nightclub where she worked. As a mother, I harbored natural concerns, not to discriminate based on occupation, but worried about the potential implications. Jim, a talented businessman with great leadership skills, lacked experience with women, and I fear he might have gotten involved with the wrong person. Despite my concerns, I reminded myself not to judge prematurely as I knew nothing about her. The day of the family meeting arrived, and Emma, the woman in question, left an impression that wasn't exactly endearing. Her dyed pink hair, heavy makeup, and overpowering perfume were off-putting. Her initial words were focused on the financial benefits of marrying into a wealthy family, emphasizing Jim's status as a big landowner and running a successful company. She showed no regard for proper greetings. Emma then went on to express her plans to work at Jim's company after their marriage, asserting her position as the president's wife. When I expressed concern about her pregnancy, she dismissed it as old-fashioned thinking, stating her intention to work even after giving birth. She confidently declared that her mother would handle childcare, suggesting that I, as the chairwoman, must be busy. The unsettling remarks continued as she mentioned Jim's desire to use the family estate as their new home, insisting on a full renovation. Additionally, she expected the hiring of a housekeeper, asserting that she couldn't be expected to do housework. On that day, a feeling of unease settled over me. When I inquired about Emma, Jim stood by her, explaining that she was nervous when meeting me and may have said things she shouldn't have. He suggested that she might be emotionally unstable, especially with the baby due in 6 months. He seemed protective of her in his response. Mark attended the wedding, while John, overseas, sent a video letter to congratulate his brother. The event was attended by many local dignitaries and company associates. Emma, with an air of pride, boasted about joining the ranks of the elite, drawing awkward glances from others. Nonetheless, she appeared pleased throughout the ceremony. True to her word, she joined the company after the marriage. However, within a month, I began hearing concerning reports about her poor reputation at work, frequent tardiness, unauthorized absences, and a lack of interest in learning her job became common occurrences. Criticism from colleagues would result in threats of firing or demotion. A veteran employee hesitantly relayed this information to me, avoiding direct confrontation with Jim. Living in the estate, details about Emma were scarce, but it was apparent that she often stayed out late and left the house early on weekends. This behavior left me wondering about her whereabouts during her pregnancy. When I confronted Jim about these observations, he appeared troubled and evasive. During this time, Emma gave birth to a boy. Her response, "It's finally over. I've done my part." Women always get the short end of the stick. Now the fun begins, left me bewildered. Although Jim was happy to see his child, he confessed feeling less moved than he anticipated. He questioned his own emotions and sought to understand what his father was like. When I was born, Jim appeared tired, and Emma's behavior became increasingly unrestrained. She resumed drinking and started frequenting bars nightly, abandoning the image of a respectable wife. Ignoring her husband's needs, she pursued her desires recklessly, acting in a childish manner. Although Jim occasionally sought help, he mostly managed on his own. Emma's mother cared for the child during the day, often keeping him overnight due to Emma's late nights. Witnessing Jim's exhaustion, he confided in me during dinner, expressing his struggle to feel love for his son. He felt like a failure as a father, unable to connect with his own child. Jim's exhaustion was evident as he muttered these words. Emma's carefree behavior at work and in her nightlife persisted, pushing my patience to its limits. However, everything changed when Jim collapsed at work and was rushed to the hospital. He was diagnosed with overwork and underwent thorough examinations, revealing a nightmare I had experienced decades ago. Jim had a malignant tumor, the same kind as my late husband. Struck by despair, I feared Jim's fate would mirror that of my husband's. The thought of enduring the same agony sent shivers down my spine. This time had to be different. Jim wasn't like my husband. Despite my hopes, Jim's condition followed the same tragic path. As the weather turned colder, signaling the approach of winter, Jim passed away one afternoon. Our first family member born of my union with my husband was called to heaven. Exhausted and emotionally drained, I wandered aimlessly, with those around me helping to make funeral arrangements. Emma, noticeably absent, failed to fulfill her role as Jim's wife. She hardly visited him in the hospital and showed no care for him. At the funeral, many people reminisced about Jim, but Emma's presence was disconcerting. Having returned home only that morning after the funeral, she attended Jim's memorial. While many people shared memories of Jim, Emma, having had a few drinks, approached me and said, "Kate." Inheriting the land worth $500 as Jim's wife, Emma boldly declared, "I'll make good use of my husband's wealth." Her mocking words silenced everyone around us, freezing the atmosphere. Suddenly, a man's laughter broke the silence. "Thinking you're rich now? That's a big misunderstanding," he remarked. Angered, Emma turned to retort, but the man continued, revealing himself as Jim's lawyer. He asserted, "You won't receive a cent of his estate. I'll make sure Jim's suffering is not in vain." The lawyer, who was Mark, clarified about the land, stating, "It's actually Mom's asset, right? All the land was originally mine, not my husband's. He had married into the family, and the land passed down through my lineage was utilized by him. After my husband's death, ownership remained with me." Emma was shocked, hearing this information for the first time. "When my husband died, there was talk of dividing his assets, but the land was not part of it. The assets mainly related to the company, and my sons had renounced their inheritance rights, believing the assets built with their father should be passed on to me." Emma raised her voice, insisting, "But Jim's assets, I should inherit them, right?" "There's supposed to be $500K. Mark sobered her up, stating, "Jim left nothing for you in his will. You won't receive a cent of Jim's assets." Jim had quietly harbored anger towards Emma, and his decision not to leave her anything was understandable. The full story would be revealed in the next discussion. Emma desperately clung to the idea of her son's possible inheritance, but Mark pointed out, "So what if I can't inherit? My son has the right to his inheritance." However, the legitimacy of the child came into question. Jim, unable to find love for his child and doubting the paternity, had a DNA test done, which 100% denied any blood relation with the child. Simultaneously, Jim had hired a private investigator to look into Emma's behavior, revealing that she had continued a relationship with a man before their marriage, making the child likely his. The child was no longer recognized as Jim's legitimate offspring, excluded from inheritance. Mark explained, "Your actions and neglect as a wife sufficiently meet the criteria for Jim not to leave you any inheritance." Emma bit her lip in frustration as the revelations unfolded. Emma's mother, also motivated by money, entered the conversation, and it was revealed that formalities were underway to cut ties with both Emma and her mother. "We need to sever connections with gold diggers," Mark declared, addressing both Emma and her mother. Their faces betrayed a mix of anger and despair as Mark continued, "And Emma, we'll be suing you for your illegal actions at the company." Since Emma started working at the company, unaccounted expenses arose. As a certified public accountant, along with trustworthy staff, I scrutinized the accounts and uncovered numerous suspicious withdrawals. Investigations revealed Emma's involvement in each case, and we were prepared to file a lawsuit with all the evidence. Additionally, "You won't get away with the business interference and vandalism at the restaurant," Mark added. "You vandalized and tampered with the property because they refused you entry without a reservation. Your actions were recorded and spread on social media, causing a significant issue in the community. The police are already involved for embezzlement and business interference. You could be arrested at any moment." Emma broke down in tears at Mark's final words. She was later arrested and awaited trial. Our ties with Emma were completely severed, leaving me with a sense of relief. Though the child wasn't biologically related, I felt a pang for what I once thought was my grandchild. But there was nothing more I could do. With Mark's help, we avoided the worst. It's only natural to act for the family, John, who had returned from Jim's funeral, added. We've always been a family, and we always will be. John had grown into a robust, admirable man. Beside him was a beautiful woman he met on his assignment, promising to marry. They had come to introduce her to me because of my brother's news. She met John as a business partner and decided to become his life partner. I've been successful in my assignment abroad and fulfilled my obligations to the company, John explained. Once my term ends, I want to return home with her and join my brother's company. John wanted to protect the company built by his father and brother, and his return home for marriage brought me great joy.